six-part series of Know Your Local Government. And tonight we have the County Clerk, Brad Kendall. I'm going to let our board president, Lynn Ruggiero, talk about a little bit about the series and introduce Brad.
Well, since you're our loyal follower, you already know my spiel. Civics 101, but I figured this is the end of this series, but please let Lisa know what you thought of it. And should we do something else like it? We could do a whole degree if this is 101, you know, piece at a time. But anyway, it's been great, and we really appreciate your coming and all the other elected officials that came. So I think we've all learned something, and that's why we're lucky to have you and you've come back. So thank you again for being here, and Brad, thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great to be here, great to be in a library. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but I'll start with the fact that my family moved to Town Beacon in 1961, part of the IBM migration. And one of the things my mother did is a couple years later was become a founding member of the Beacon Library. And so I spent my early childhood Saturdays. The library was in a one-room schoolhouse by Greenhaven Prison. There used to be a little schoolhouse there. And she would volunteer at the library, open it up for people, and we would play in the library. And it got to the point where you could see through the floorboards down to the dirt cellar underneath, and they said, that's it, no more of this library, we're about to do another one. But anyway, libraries have always held a dear place in my heart. So I grew up in Town Beacon. Talk a little bit about myself because every politician likes to do that. And I went to Arlington High School, graduated from Arlington High School, went to Williams College in Massachusetts, where the best thing I did there was meet my lovely wife, now at 47 years, Barbara Kendall. Pat knows Barbara from Unitarian Fellowship. She's a very talented pianist, and actually a much better public presenter than I am. She's done it quite a bit, but she's retired now. So after we got married, we kind of kicked around a little bit and ended up moving back to Dutchess County, where we built a home in 1984, and have raised two children there, two boys. They're now 40 and 37, unbelievably. And I just became a grandfather 6 weeks ago. So that's pretty nice. I got involved in politics locally. Our house is in the town of Dover. I joined the local political committee in 1986, was appointed to the planning board a year later. And in 1991, I ran for county legislature, and I lost. My first election, and I said, I'm never doing this again. Enough politics. And in 1993, the fellow who beat me called me up and said, are you running again? And I said, I'm not going to run against you. You're doing a good job. He said, well, I'm not running again. And I don't want the person who wants to put his hand up to win. So I said, if you will support me, I'll run again. So that was 1993. So I joined the county legislature then. I served for the next 13 years. The last 7 of those as chair of the county legislature. And in 2006, the end of 2006, Colette Fuente, who was mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie, and then became county clerk, decided after 3 years she was going to retire. And this is the first point about the county clerk's office. The county clerk's office is a constitutional office of the state of New York. So it's created by the New York State Constitution. So when there's a vacancy in that office, the governor appoints the next county clerk until the next election. And I, through my politics, met George Pataki along the way in 1994. And I called him up and I said, Governor, Colette has contacted you, she's going to resign. And I'd like to be the next county clerk of Dutchess County. And he called me back a couple of days later and said, yeah, I think that would work out. So I was appointed in December 29, 2006, ran in 2007, and I'm now in my 5th term as county clerk. So I've been there 19 years. And it's a great position to hold. There's politics because you have to run for office, but there's no politics every day. It's all about helping people out, no matter where they are, who they are, just trying to solve their problems. And I like to say that what we're really there for is to sand the rough edges off the bureaucracy, try and make it understandable and easy. So that's what I've done for the last 19 years. You're ending with the county clerk's office, which is somewhat ironic because it's one of the oldest, the second oldest municipal office in Dutchess County. Dutchess County was one of the original counties of New York, created in 1683. Until 1713, it was administered from Ulster County, because there weren't enough people in Dutchess County. But they also had a hard time collecting taxes from Kingston for all of Dutchess County. There were about 400 people in Dutchess County. So they appointed justices of the peace, who oversaw the 3 precincts of Dutchess County in 1713. And of course, once you have judges or justices, you need somebody to keep track of paperwork. So they created the position of county clerk in 1715. So we are now in our 310th year. And it's a kind of a remarkable run. We have court records from that time. We have land records from 1718, I think is our first recorded deed. And so those are the 2 main historic responsibilities of the county clerk. We are clerk of the Supreme Court, Dutchess County, and clerk of the county court. So it's the civil and the criminal courts of Dutchess County. And we are the holder of all the land records of the county. Deeds, mortgages, assignments, discharges, that sort of thing. That function actually goes back to the Magna Carta. So when 1215, when the Magna Carta was adopted, and that gave the right of individuals to own land as opposed to the king owning the land. And once individuals could own land, you had to keep track of the ownership, because I'm not going to buy a piece of property from Richard, he can't prove he owns it. And so that began the chain of title. And that's what we're responsible for, is ensuring the chain of title from 1718 to the present. And you can view those records online. The deeds are back to about 1920 now. By next year, we'll be entirely online with all the deeds to 1718. But what's not online is in our office at 22 Market Street. So that's kind of the historic background of the county clerk's office. In 1921, there's a new invention, relatively new invention, called a car. And that was registered through the Department of Taxation and Finance in New York State. And clearly, as the number of cars grew and that sort of thing, they needed a better way of tracking that. So in 1921, county clerks were made responsible as agents of the commissioner for DMV. So we've been doing that ever since. It now represents about 75% of the transactions we do every year. So in total, we do 400,000 transactions, about 100,000 in the clerk's office, about 300,000 in DMV. In addition to all of that, we register notaries. So the county clerk is the chief notary of the county. Corporations are pretty much established in the state of New York, but they're registered locally. Assumed names, sole proprietorships are done through the county clerk's office. So we can register people's businesses. We also maintain oaths of office for all municipal officers, dating back to the mid-1700s. So for instance, today we've got a request for a certification of a marriage record from 1936. And to certify that, we had to verify that the clerk would sign that was actually the clerk who was entitled to sign it. So we go to the record center, contact them, and we get that oath of office in 1936. So it's pretty important. If you need your vital statistic records are certified, births, deaths, and marriages, county clerk does that, but we can only do that if we have the oath of office on file. If you need a certification for a notary, for an apostille through the Department of State, we also certify those signatures in Dutchess County. One of my favorite things coming up this Friday is naturalizing citizens, welcoming new citizens. We are the final step in people becoming a citizen. So it's a requirement that they stand up and take an oath of allegiance, and we administer that 7 times a year. Pat has joined us as a representative of the League of Women Voters, and you actually filled in once singing the national anthem and America the Beautiful at the end. Fortunate for us, because our singer didn't show up. Pat jumped right in and did a wonderful job. But truly, that is what I think probably the 6 happiest days in the county clerk's office. Everybody is joyous. The kids sometimes are a little over exuberant, but that's okay. And one of the big misconceptions, I think, is that a lot of people think that naturalized citizens are just off the boat, or they just reached 5 years and became citizens. I've naturalized a fellow who was a Vietnam War veteran. So you can start doing the math. He was easily 82 years old. He fought as a permanent resident for the United States, but never became a US citizen. So I asked him, why now? He said, because my grandchildren, they wanted me to become a citizen. There was another fellow, Japanese origin, and I said, so how long have you been in the country? He said, 30 years. He said, and now you're becoming a citizen? He said, yeah, I've wanted to do it since I was eligible after 5 years. But my mother was alive in Japan. As long as she was alive, I couldn't renounce my Japanese citizenship. And she passed away last year, and now I become a US citizen. So if we do 6 ceremonies a year, and we average 50 to 100 people, it's about 300 to 600, 700 people a year that we naturalize. So we've been doing it for 19 years. It's a lot of new citizens, but everybody's story is unique. And it's really moving. We're at Marist College on Friday at 11. If you want to stop down, their ceremonies are open to the public, and you're more than welcome to join us. So, more than several years ago now, we started something called the Return the Favor program forever. Certainly since World War I. Veterans have been able to register their honorable discharge papers with Dutchess County, their DD-214s. And it's important, A, because if they ever need certified copies of those documents, they can get them from us. It's a lot faster than going through the federal government. And B, it's a kind of a backup. So in 1983, there was a massive fire in Kansas in the government warehouse, and veterans records were wiped out for a good portion of veterans. So if we have them, that's like a stopgap measure for them to replace those documents. And a good friend of mine, the clerk of Rockland County, said, well, we have the veterans. We need to encourage them to come in. What can we do? And they created something called the Return the Favor program. And so we solicit businesses to offer some type of discount, whatever they choose, to become a Return the Favor participant. And then after the veteran registers with the county, we issue a Return the Favor card, which is honored by those businesses for discounts. And since it started, it's kind of gone almost nationwide, to the extent that now a lot of businesses will just honor the VA card, which kind of defeats the purpose from our viewpoint, but we're happy that anybody can get the discount they deserve. 5 years ago, we started a domestic registry in Dutchess County for domestic partners. It's the one time we've stepped over the line because we don't do vital statistics, as I said before. We don't do marriages, we don't do births, we don't do deaths. Happy to help you get divorced, right here with you. But not marriage, deaths, or births. But what we found was a lot of people needed the interim step of a domestic partnership. Either they didn't want to get married, or they had gotten married, didn't want to go through it again. But they were in a committed relationship and needed proof of that for insurance benefits or other benefits. And so we started the Dutchess County Domestic Registry Partnership. And that's been pretty successful. It's worked out pretty well. Something hot off the presses, not really hot off the presses, is a program we started earlier this year called Dutchess Deed Watch. It's a quick, easy program. You can go sign up for it. It registers your name and email address with us, and then if a deed is filed affecting your name, you'll get an email notification. Kind of LifeLock without the cost, and only for limited documents, not every document under the sun. But I have information if you want to grab that on your way. It really is very easy to sign up. It's your full name, your email address, and you can add up to 4 additional names. The only caution is that you put the full name on, because if you say I'm Brad Kendall, and I put in Brad Kendall, Bradford Kendall, and I add Barbara as my wife, in name 1, I'm gonna get a notification on every deed that affects Barbara, any Barbara, in Dutchess County. So we try to explain that, but that works out pretty well. Any questions, anybody? Mark with me? Yeah.
How many people are in the, the Dutchess County office?
So, we're authorized, I think, for 66 people, and that includes 4 different, parts, DMV, Farm and Motor Vehicles. We have 4 offices, in Beacon, Wappingers, Millbrook, and Poughkeepsie. We have 33 authorized positions, I think, for that, but I think we're losing one. And then the clerk's office, about 26. Don't check my math on this, because it changes all the time. One of the things I really enjoyed doing was when Mark Molinaro first became county executive. He and I are good friends from the legislature. I said to him, Mark, you know, we haven't really had a county historian since Joyce Gee. Some of you may remember Joyce Gee. We're a dedicated county historian. But we really haven't had one since she resigned. And it wasn't funded in the county, or was it funded minimally? And I said, Mark, I've got a position in the clerk's office. I can give that up to take in like 2/3 of the financing, but let's get a county historian. And I see Will Tatum's gonna be speaking on October 18th. And he's really been a great asset for Dutchess County. He's been spearheading the ancient documents project, which is online on our website, which is imaging court documents from 1718 through 1880. And we're now in our 12th year of funding from the state of New York. Very unusual. Most times the state will give you money for the first 2 or 3 years and say, that's it, it's your program, take off. But they like the program, we like the program. It's pretty fascinating. So he's been great with that, and of course he's been an integral part of the Rev 250 series this year throughout Dutchess County, celebrating the American Revolution. So I see you're going to hear him on the 18th. He's, like I say, he's a great presenter, very knowledgeable. And then in 2016, we took over records management for the county, the records management department. We've hired an archivist since, and he's been involved in a project where we've been working with Abilities First, where they supply the employees and we supply the work, and they scan documents, historic documents. We've done all the property tax records back to 1951. We're working on the Board of Elections series, but then we also do scanning in partnership with municipalities. So a lot of municipalities have old, fragile records, not always in the best of shape or secure. So we cut a deal with them. We'll make the digital copy for you. We get to keep a copy, you get the access to the digital copy, and you get your document back. That's a service we provide to the various towns. So DMV, County Clerk's Office, Records Management, historian, about 66 people. Yeah.
So the records management piece, are you doing anything with the town of Hyde Park?
I don't know, quite honestly, but I'm not that I'm aware at the moment. So I convinced the county to buy a large format scanner about 10 years ago, very expensive piece of equipment, and that's what we use, a flatbed scanner. So it really, it's a great way to do the ancient documents and preserve them without damaging them. So, and Justin Mancini is the archivist, and he oversees the Abilities First, does a lot of scanning himself. So, but we're open to anything Hyde Park might have. We've done early books. A lot of towns have registers of the poor back in the 1800s. We've done those for Big Pine Plains in the Northeast. Armenia, we've done a lot with Armenia. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Could you explain what the process is for a woman who owns a home, gets married, and wants to change her name on the deed of the home?
So you refile a new deed.
Through your office?
Through my office.
Okay.
First floor. We don't provide deed forms. It's a legal form, so we don't provide that. But assuming, so you're asking about Are you?
myself.
Okay. So.
We've only been married for almost 20 years, and
Yeah.
I've never changed it, cause I was told I needed a lawyer to do it, and it just never happened.
Well, my standard answer on that is you're dealing with a very valuable asset, and it's good to have legal advice to make sure that that chain of title works.
Okay.
But, so is it the deed in your maiden name? And is it in your name too, sir?
Mm-mm.
No. Any interest on getting on the deed? I'm not, you know.
Yes.
So you would execute a deed, transferring your maiden name as the grantor
Mhm.
to either you or both of you, in your current name as grantee.
So I can just come to your office and do that. I know
You
it, I
file it.
understand it's a big.
There's two, New York State forms, one's an RB 5217 form.
Okay.
Because in New York State, if one form's good, two is better.
Of course.
That's the real property form, which will inform the, assessors and everybody else that there's a change in ownership. And then there's a TP 584 form, which is a transfer tax form. But I don't believe there's any money involved when you're the sole parties in between. If there isn't, it might be a $5 filing fee.
Awesome. Thank
And those forms, the state forms, you can get online or you can get them in our office. But online they're fillable.
you.
Yeah.
Should've done it a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's not, it doesn't, just kind of my wife's friend's mom, 90s, doesn't drive, lost her marriage license and would like to get like a real ID to get on an airplane.
Yeah.
What would she have to do?
So that kind of leads us to the whole real ID discussion, so
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Oh, okay, I figured you'd get around to it.
Yeah. So real ID is issued under guidelines issued by the federal government. It was a law passed in 2005, it only took them 20 years to get around to fully implementing it. And in a lot of ways, it's much harder to get a real ID than to get a passport. Now, the law doesn't say you have to get a real ID, driver's license, or ID card.
Yeah.
It says you need a federally accepted form of identification, and there's about 15 different forms. So for instance, if you're a permanent resident of this country, your permanent resident card will suffice. If you have a passport, that works. Passport card works. But if you want to get that real ID, it's like starting all over again. And I've had people come up to me and said, Mr. Kendall, I've known you for 65 years. Why can't you just do this? And I said, well, because we have to scan things and they can't scan me.
Yeah.
So, but if you have a current driver's license,
But she doesn't drive, this one, she doesn't drive.
does she have an ID?
What?
Does she have a New York State ID?
I don't know, I don't think so.
Okay, well, she can get a New York State ID that is real ID compliant.
Okay,
She'll need a birth certificate, social security card, or a social security statement with a full number on it.
okay,
She'll need two proofs of where she lives,
okay,
utility bill, tax bill, and there's a number of that. And then that's where it gets tricky, especially for women, because if your name is changed in your life, you have to document those name changes. So that means you have to bring in your marriage license, and if you got divorced, you need divorce decree and your marriage license. If you got remarried, now you need two marriage licenses and a divorce decree. And if you got divorced twice, you can kind of follow where this is
Yeah.
going, which is why it's easier to get a passport.
just get a passport,
Or a pass card.
okay.
That's certainly easy.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to take one and pass these out.
Thank you.
Pass them around. On that card, on the back, there are two websites. One is a QR code and a website for the documents that you need to get a real ID. And it's pretty easy, it's a checklist. And at the end, it's going to say, yes, you have what you need, or no, you didn't, as long as you pay attention to the checklist. The other one is a link to make an appointment at Airbnb. And I will tell you with real ID, and because we have 6 vacancies, even though we got approval to fill 2 of them, the real ID has put real stress on the system. Because instead of me coming in to renew a license, I now want to renew and get a real ID. Instead of a quick, easy 5 minutes read the eye chart, now you've got one clerk that's got to scan my documents, and then it's got to be reviewed by a second clerk. So So it takes a 5-minute transaction turns it into a 25, 30-minute transaction. And when you multiply that times 4,000 licenses in Dutchess County, it gets renewed every year. It makes for long waits in the DMV, which is why I know for years, some of you know, that I've encouraged people to do all their business locally in the DMV, because we used to be funded primarily through what we did in the office. We got 12.7% of what we did in the office, and a little over 3% on anything that was done online. And we were losing about 1.2 million a year on DMV services in Dutchess County. I say losing, it was costing us that much more to provide them than we were getting in reimbursement. I was neglected to tell you when I started that I was a small business guy for 30 years. I built a lot of homes. So that's why I think about losing money and that sort of thing. After 10 years of working hard, working over the commissioner DMV, various commissioners, we finally got him to agree that we needed to stop fighting over customers. Don't drive, we want to drive in the office, you guys want to do it online, let's come up with something that works so we do the best thing for the customer. So now we get 10.25% for all transactions from Dutchess County residents, whether you do it in office or not. And that's worth about an additional 1.2 million a year to us. So we're very happy with that. And with that in mind, there's about 60 transactions you can do online. It's a 2-part card. One is vehicle transactions, the other is license transactions. Go to this website, you can find out what you can do online, and I encourage you to use that. A registration renewal will take you less than 2.5 minutes to do it online if you have your credit card information. You will have to create a MyDMV account, which is relatively painless. But then you can look up your record, you can look up and do your registrations, you can do a license renewal if your doctor or a pharmacy does your eyes and sends it in. So it's really a great step forward.
So the enhanced driver's license, how does that compare with the real ID or passport?
So if you have the enhanced license, you have a real ID. So think of it as progressive. The real ID will get you on domestic flights and into federal facilities. The enhanced driver's license for $30 more will get you on domestic flights, federal facilities, and also allow you to travel to Canada or Mexico by land or sea, but not by air. Any international air travel requires a passport. So that's kind of the difference. Same proof requirements, however.
Brad, there was a period of time when people registered a new driver's license, they were able to register to vote.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a place for them to note their party of preference. And as a result of that, they couldn't vote in primaries. Has that been remedied now?
Well, I know you're talking about at the counter.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're fully compliant. It used to be you could choose 9 different parties. They've changed the rules now. There's only 4 different parties you can sign up for. But yeah, that's part of the registration process.
Okay.
And it's in multiple languages. You cannot get out of DMV without somebody asking you if you want to register to vote, even if you all are already registered to vote. We probably register more people than anybody else in Dutchess County. No offense to the league.
No offense.
That's fine.
But we're trying.
So how long does it take once someone registers through the DMV to get that information to the Board of Elections?
It's transmitted electronically. I know we do it up until the cutoff date, and we get a directive 3 or 4 days before the cutoff date to make sure that any paper registration we might have gets in the mail by the cutoff date, because they go by the postmark. But it's all electronic. It's virtually instantaneous.
Instantaneous?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we go about getting our driver's license on our mobile devices, being that we have everything on these?
Yep. So there's something called MID, mobile identification. You can go online to New York State DMV and download that app.
It refuses to download the license. Like I
Yeah,
have
no.
the app and I keep trying to scan it and it's like, nope.
People don't want to take it. You know, it's like an interim step, but they have to work on the technology and all of the security arrangements. And it becomes an issue, I think, especially for law enforcement agencies, because they don't want you handing over your phone at the window when you can pull it over and taking it back to the car and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So yeah, they're still required to have a physical license. But they're working on it, and they'll get there. I know Arizona already is done. Usually Arizona is about 4 or 5 years ahead of New York on all this.
I think that was California.
Hmm?
I thought that was California,
Yeah.
it was for, right,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm glad you shared about the transactions, cause my husband is the one who told me that I always had to go to Poughkeepsie to register my cars.
Yeah.
And he said, the money stays local, you
Well,
have
we
to go, you
appreciate
have to go, but now I know I
But
can
now we
actually
get it,
do it
yeah.
online.
The other thing you should know is, so many people got used to getting a pink envelope in the mail for the renewals, the registration renewals. If New York State captured your email address, they took you off the mailing list, so you won't get those envelopes. And you say, well, I don't do anything with New York State. Well, I don't know how many people have got the COVID vaccine and had to give their email address. They got that data, they got that email address. So it, I get, all the time I get people coming, you didn't send anything in the mail to me. Well, first of all, it's on your windshield. And second, you're kind of responsible for knowing when your registration expires. And thirdly, New York State's not doing it. You can request to go back on the mail list when you come into the DMV. But if people like getting mail, that's fine. So,
How does it work for college students, sorry, who may be in the area for a long period of time and their car expires? Do they end up registering in New York? And I'm just curious about this, only simply because I have coworkers who
Yeah.
are new to the state and they're like, what's with the stickers on my windshield? When am I supposed to go do things? It wasn't that way in my state kind of thing, but I work at a
So-
college.
under the law, you're required to change your license and registrations within 30 days of becoming a resident of New York State, whatever resident means. Nobody enforces it, it's really an honor system. So they can say I came in from New Hampshire and I have a car, and I want to transfer that registration and title to New York. I can do that. There's a form, if I was a resident of New Hampshire when I bought the car, I don't have to pay sales tax again in New York. But you can come in, you have to do that. We don't take care of the New Hampshire plates, you have to get those back to New Hampshire on your own. But you will need New York State insurance before you do the transaction. So it's available, and we get a lot of kids from the culinary, Harris College coming in, and either getting New York State IDs or licenses. Still astounds me when we do passport fairs at colleges, the number of kids who don't have permits or licenses in their 20s. It's one of the first things I did when I was 16 years old.
15 and a half.
15 and 16 then, for me, and that's when you can take a permit test on $535 a piece. And my first year there, I see written on there, expires 2007, put in 2008 budget. And I said, we're gonna throw out that whole thing because if the wheel expired, somebody makes that wheel. So I found out Rapid Print makes the wheel, you can order a new wheel for $45. And in about 15 minutes, I can put a new wheel in. And it's good for another 11 years. And I thought, why stop there? There's other parts that break, let's see how many of these we can fix. So fortunately, my office has a whole bunch of them. And now I've fixed them for the Department of Central Services and Human Resources and everything else. But save about $500 every time I do it, because it used to cost $300 just to send it out to have it assessed, than whatever it costs to repair. But yeah, like I said, for 30 years, I was a small business owner. I had a small construction company, built a lot of log homes all over the Hudson Valley. So if I can fix it, and I don't have to worry DPW about fixing something, we'll fix it. And so one of the things I said to, that's my first year, and the first year was challenging, running for countywide office for the first time, and trying to learn the job and trying to administer DMV. So it's like having three jobs at the same time. And so some things slipped through the cracks, and so we had a full staff meeting after the election. And the other thing is, for the first year, they're trying to figure out how long they have to deal with you. It's gonna be 4 years, is it gonna be gone at the end of this year? I really don't have to do one. And so, once I was in there for 4 years, we had a meeting, and I said to the staff, you know, there's some things that were not right last year. You learned about things in the paper, you should have known about them before you read about them. That's not going to happen again. But here's my message to you. People come into our office, we make them fill out forms. Most people hate forms. Then we make them go to a pen machine and buy a pen that the ink's drying because nobody's used a pen machine for 35 years. I said, we're gonna put pens on the counter. And he said, people are gonna steal them. I said, well, put chains on them. Well, people will break the chains. I said, how much can we lose? But if we're gonna make them fill out forms, we're gonna give them pens. I said, the other thing is when they come to the window, you have to remember that they're intimidated. You know, we know what we're doing, that we feel great about this. But there's a lot of questions and people don't wanna feel like they don't know what they're doing. So we have to be understanding. And if they don't get it right the first time, that's understandable. They have to come back. But if they don't get it right the second time, we didn't do our job the first time because we didn't explain it right. So we have to really think about it from the other perspective. So I'll spend more time, and this was 19 years ago, it was true then, it's probably still true. I said I'll spend more time on the public side of the DMV than I will ever spend on our side of the DMV. But we've got to be respectful. And so the other thing is, we're not the only game in town anymore. You know, there is the internet. There are other options for people to do their DMV work. And if people don't want to come here, there's going to be a lot fewer of you working there. So let's kind of change the mindset a little bit. And I think over 19 years it has.
You can get people not to steal your pens.
So you take them occasionally.
So I work at the culinary and every student on campus wants a Sharpie. It's something that they all want. You find a Sharpie, they want it. So I said, you guys aren't stealing my Sharpies. So I took some cardstock paper and I twirled it out real nice and made a big huge cone at the top of every Sharpie, and I taped it on with so much tape that you weren't getting it off. You're not gonna see anyone walking around with a big Sharpie with a big cone hanging out. So you just have to be creative. People can steal them.
Yeah, it drives me nuts though, because you can't buy replacements anymore for the pens on the change. You gotta buy the whole shop. And it's the same, pretty much the same price.
Of course it is. No.
Anything else? I'm trying to see if I missed anything. The only thing I'd add is we have a great online presence, dutchessny.gov/county-clerk. We'll get you to our homepage, /DMV, we'll get you to DMV and the appointment information, which is also on our homepage. We have over 3 million documents online, which you can view. It'll be watermarked. If you want to purchase the document, you can. You'll get an unwatermarked link to the document. In 2016, we started electronic filing of court records, and that's expanded tremendously. So all of our civil cases, about 90% of those are now filed electronically, and those documents are available at no charge on New York State Court's electronic filing system. So if you want to see why Rhinebeck's suing Hyde Park and you want to read the papers in the case, you can look it up and read every document. And so we've really expanded our digital footprint tremendously. Yeah.
You had mentioned the deeds. You have every deed in the county back to 1713.
1718.
1718.
Yeah. Now here's the funny part.
You're on a very old house, and I'm
Yeah.
very curious to find the history of the ownership on the house.
Yeah, and that's a good portion. In the summer, we get all sorts of people coming in from across the country doing exactly that. It's a little harder than it might seem because a lot of the deeds don't reference the improvements on the property. So you'll see the meets and bounds description of the land. You'll see who it came from and who it went to, but it's not going to list the house or the barn or all those structures. But yeah,
That was the garbage dumpster. I remember going there once and finding where they put garbage in the 1800s, where people dump garbage on their properties, and you actually had a spot on my dad's house where the garbage was to be put. You never did.
well, yeah, it could be. There could be an easement or restriction. Yeah, restrictions on the property that are contained within the deed. When my parents bought their house in '61, it had been subdivided off a much larger farm. The house went back to 1820, but one of the deed restrictions was no pig farms. No pigs on the property. And all the restrictions ran until about 1983, and then they expired. When I bought my property, no, this one, no outdoor clothesline unless it's an umbrella type. Now, I live on 5 acres on the middle of the woods, but at the time the land was subdivided, it was subdivided by Jack Cordero, who was an attorney. And the town of Dover had no zoning code, so essentially he wrote a zoning code into the deed restrictions on the parcels that were being sold. So,
That's a wild rule.
Hmm?
That's really wild.
yeah.
What's
I mean,
the
there
difference?
was no mobile homes, there was a bunch of other restrictions, but the clothesline one is the one that really,
Yeah.
yeah. You can get the umbrella, but don't put the line between here and there.
No.
Yeah. So,
Brad, is there any listing of all the easements?
no. So, it's pretty much on a parcel by parcel. When the county took over the rail trail north of, Parker Avenue in Poughkeepsie, up to Marist College, there was a question about how they were gonna transfer title, because, the number of descriptions was just astronomical. And I finally said, how about this, how about, if you have a map, you have a survey map of what you're trying to accomplish, why don't you file that as a file map and then reference that in a transfer document? And it worked. So, and full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer, so don't construe anything I told you to give as legal advice. It's one thing we get a lot of questions, we try to answer them as best we can, but we are strictly prohibited from giving legal advice. So my advice to you about the deed is not.
I still want those form numbers, but I can get those before I leave.
Sure. Any other questions? Anything about county government? I know you've heard from the district attorney last week, and you've heard from the county executive in
I think we have some more questions than him.
Yeah, the district attorney didn't come along until 1821, so we're pretty. And the sheriff is really ticked that he's 1717 and we're 1715. And I think 1717 is a stretch. I think it's more like 1721. Who's going to tell the sheriff that? Not me.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.